Lifelong process.
Hello, a very warm welcome to Values, Virtues, Ethics and Morality. This program is an invitation to join myself, Magela Pillay, and Sister Denise, who has been a Raj Yoga teacher with the Brahma Kumaris for several decades. The format of the show is Socratic dialogue. This is a philosophical method of systematic doubt and questioning to elicit a clear expression of a truth deemed to be knowable by all rational beings. We will take up a wide variety of subjects related to moral and ethical values. We will question the conventional views on these matters. We will analyze and dialogue the topics to gain greater insight and perhaps even uncover new foundations for formulating our value systems. Everyone is concerned about doing the right thing. Paradoxically, it has been found that people often act against their own conscience. We will investigate why this is so. Today's topic is morality and gender, and I would like to welcome Sister Denise to the studio today. Sister Denise, very warm welcome.
Thank you, Magela.
This subject has taken greater front stage, as it were, in today's times because of the shock of violence against especially vulnerable members of society. But we're not here just to look at them, we're here to look at the entire subject of morality and gender. Why is this topic of interest to you?
I think ultimately it's of interest because it's about human suffering, and women are more than half the population of the world. I think there are very few women who are fully in their power and recognized, appreciated, given due regard, respect, and so on in the world, because the majority of cultures and societies are biased against women. And I think that the ethics and morality of our society actually sustains that bias and possibly even caused that bias. And because we're so much concerned about what are the foundations of ethics, morality and values in this show, I'm really wanting to take a look at how the patriarchy has actually caused damage, although it was in the name of perhaps protecting women. I think in the early period of time when all of these things were created, were thought out and so on, the idea of the relationship between males and females was that the man is the protector, the guard, the provider, the helper, the one who takes care of the outside, while the woman is the one who takes care of the inside. But what has happened over time is that it's become very rigid, and in the process it's also become very antagonistic towards the women, not allowing women many things. The right to vote is relatively recent. The right to own property for women is not there very often because of an assumption that women are irresponsible, that they don't know how to look after wealth. But the statistics and any kind of research done on this shows that the beliefs about women are pretty much the opposite of the reality. And so these beliefs are basically prejudices. And now where do prejudices come from? I think that a lot of it goes back to the the philosophies, the scriptures, the religions which have written down these ideas and which have then been interpreted as the ages have gone by in such a ways that the women's position is more and more untenable. And so at this present time, while you've got a lot of rights, you've also got far more violations of those rights. And I think that the ethical system, the mores of the society, which is the morality, is really biased against women and girls.
You've explained to us how society managed to reach this point. How does spirituality redress that?
Well, spirituality says that a person enters a body, so that the body is not the person. Conventional beliefs are that the body is the person. And so what spirituality says is the soul, the spirit of a person, is genderless. And so in that case, whether you're a spirit embodied in a female body or a spirit embodied in a male body, you're still the same genderless spirit. And if you bring in the concept of reincarnation, which exists in some societies, very much so in India, then the spirit can just as easily take a female birth in one lifetime and a male birth in another lifetime and continue shifting in such a way that you cannot really say whether a person is male or female. And this is a very new idea. It's a very deep idea, but it's fundamental to the idea of having a spiritually based system of ethics and morality.
Sister Denise, from what you said, I've gleaned that there should be more respect to the vulnerable members of society as is being currently accorded to them. And how does one begin if you're a woman who's feeling suppressed and oppressed, begin to change that from within yourself?
Well, I think first of all, the vulnerability of women is not because they're inherently vulnerable, but because the ethical and moral system has made them vulnerable, because it doesn't protect them. I think that if you look at a woman as compared with a man, a boy as compared with a girl, you find that the females are very competent, very capable, and the time when this shows up very clearly is after a war, which happens occasionally. And there, after war, most of the men have been killed, the infrastructures are destroyed, and there tend to be quite a few women left over, and what they do, they pick up the pieces and they start to do the work that's normally done by men. And at the end of the Second World War, where there were millions of people killed, and it was also coinciding with a time when the whole question of women's rights and so on was emerging. And there, the women found, to their surprise, that the ideas that had been fed to them, that you're not capable, you're not intelligent, you're not able to be educated and so on, all of this was actually false. And so they gained a great deal of self-respect, self-empowerment by starting to do these things. And they found that they could do everything, whatever men could do. And so it changed the mentality. And I think that also went a long way to enabling a shift in the social attitudes towards women and girls, so that on the one hand something really bad happened, but out of that really bad thing came something really good. And I think this is a phenomenon that we see in many cases. Another thing which I would say is important is that when the extremes are reached, the extremes of violations against women, which we're hearing about a great deal in the press nowadays, that really makes people start thinking. It makes the men start thinking, the women start thinking, it starts to make actually institutional changes. So that we're beginning to see.
So Denise, what is it about the society that we live in that causes people who perceive themselves to be stronger to treat somebody they consider to be weaker in such cruel mannerisms? What is that? And why are they, how is it that they're harboring under the illusion that they can get away with it?
Well, it's not an illusion. They do get away with it. They can get away with it, and that makes them perhaps feel stronger. But I think we have to go really deep. And when a person violates someone who is literally weaker than them, it doesn't mean that they're strong. It means that they're really weak. Mm. And so I think that if the large quantities of males at the moment are violating women, we have to look at what is causing this. And I think a lot of it is frustration, lack of employment, the many circumstances are pitted against them, and the way that they are reacting to these is to hit out against the women because they can get away with it. They can't hit out at the government, they can't hit out at the society, they can hit out at the women and the children. And so this tells us that things are not all right in areas that may be a bit more hidden from view than we would think.
Okay, so somebody is listening to this show and realizes that they're in an extremely disempowered position and they would like to make a shift. Where does one start? Whether you are the aggressor or a victim, where does one start to make the shift?
I think we have to start just thinking and speaking to each other about this. Articulating the problem is very important because it brings it from a kind of non-verbal, unpleasant feeling. I think that we have to go deep and see that we have to talk about these things. People normally don't talk about stuff. They're not used to talking about stuff. They're not educated to talk about stuff. Everything is all about sensory overload through the media, through all kinds of means. But for people to just sit down and talk to each other about what they feel, what they've experienced, and I think that our conversation can possibly be a template for that, where we say to people, you know, we're talking about these things, you can also. And try to articulate it, because once you've articulated it, you make it real. Once you make it real, you're kind of obligated to act on it. And this, I think, is a good beginning. The next thing is, once you realize you're weak, where do you get strength from? And there we move to the question of meditation. Because meditation is a word referring to the way that a human soul takes power from the divine in order to actually become what we really should be and stop being what we really don't want to be.
That sounds very empowering. Can somebody pull this off by themselves, or will they need a sense of support from the outside? Will they have to knock on the door of the nearest Brahma Kumaris center?
I think to do this alone is difficult, because you're never quite sure whether you're doing it right or is it real. Other people will tell you you're crazy. So it's good to have a support system, a support group. You know, the Brahma Kumaris centers are fairly widespread, and in a lot of them these things are discussed, but not in all of them. But I think really the place to begin is talking to yourself, talking to your friends, talking to your colleagues, and gradually building up a culture of speaking about things that you're feeling.
Sister Denise, coming back to the topic itself of gender, morality and gender. If there's somebody listening to the show who is being told from the day that she is born, or it could be a he, that he is weak, a nobody, a nothing, and that is the message that he received from practically everyone that mattered from the day he's born. But yet deep inside within his being, her being, she feels that she is more than the person that she has become. There's years of negative conditioning that has caused him or her to reach this point. How would this person break that shell? How do you do that? How do you face yourself to embark on that journey?
Definitely there'll be a crisis, an inner crisis, a crisis of identity, a crisis that will cause a person perhaps to even go away. And some people, they just go on pilgrimages just to be away in a way that is sort of allowed, socially allowed. Going on a pilgrimage is very interesting. I know several people who've gone on the pilgrimage of Santiago de Compostela, where you are walking about maybe 15 miles a day, 30 miles a day, I can't remember what it is, but you're alone. But there are other people on the path. But it really makes you think. And you have a goal, and your goal is that you want to reach the destination of the pilgrimage. But going along the pilgrimage, you're really doing some deep thinking about who you are and what you are, and maybe you're going to start to articulate that to yourself. And you might meet along the way other people who are also doing some deep thinking. And this is very often a life-changing occurrence. When you're in a particular environment where that conditioning is being reinforced constantly, it's difficult to feel the difference, to notice what's happening to you. But as soon as you go to a different environment with different people, it can be a good trigger to wake that up. The other thing is being introspective, being aware of the inner world, the inner self, and starting that dialogue with yourself. That is a very big trigger to bring about change.
So it involves it involves introspection, it involves self-work, it involves support from the right type of people. Does it involve in any, to any measure, external change?
Well, I feel that in whenever there's an internal change, there's a change in your vibration, your aura, your attitude, and so the external world is going to change, because your external world is, whether you like it or not, it really is a reflection of where you are internally. And you might not change the external world that much, but you'll definitely change the feeling of who you are that other people will feel, and you'll start to make more and more physical changes, yes.
So Denise, a certain amount of action is also needed, because together with the legacy of gender inequality, people, both male and female, people find themselves in very bad marriages in which they're treated very badly. People may find themselves victimized by a boss who doesn't see their value. People might find themselves in positions where the external is reflective of their own lack of worth. And whilst I do appreciate what you're saying, that the internal must shift, how does one go about facing all of this and saying, putting the external right? How does one change that? Because that's part and parcel of morality and gender, is it not?
I think the inner shift is key and crucial. because from that you're then ready to speak to other people, which you would never have dared to do before. Talking to other people about your situation means you're no longer experiencing it in isolation. When you're in isolation in a bad situation, that isolation perpetuates it. There are also more and more models of people who are in similar situations, who have pulled themselves out of it, who have faced the reaction of society and survived and prospered. So they're laying trails, for others to follow, and that has made a big difference.
What do you mean when you say isolation perpetuates it? Say more about that.
A woman within a bad marriage is also told you have to make it look like it's a good marriage. And so all the people around her put her in that position where she has to pretend everything is okay. That puts her in isolation because she's not allowed by the society to be truthful. So the only truth is when she talks to herself in isolation. The rest of the time she has to put on a good face, dress up, smile, and everything is fine. But behind that it's not. Now, as soon as she starts talking to other people about it, she starts to get support. And maybe she can even get people who will help her and give her that sense that she's got, people to fall back on if she decides she will actually leave the situation. Because the society threatens women that, a woman who leaves a marriage means she's a bad woman, you see. And that is a prejudice. A woman who leaves a bad marriage doesn't mean she's a bad woman. And so we're challenging that assumption. And that is part of the conventional ethics and morality, which is putting women in a very vulnerable position. You see, it's not that she is vulnerable, they make her vulnerable.
I see. Denise, thank you. I think that's all we have time for today. It's been an extremely enlightening half an hour. I hope that those of you watching the show enjoyed it as much as I did. And I also hope that you were able to extract some gems from Sister Denise's talk, take it home to your friends and family, and I hope it is of some use in your life. Thank you very much for joining us today, and goodbye.